Welcome to the teacher training at No Name Middle School. Today we are going to focus upon the skills our students most need. If you will look at this chart, you can see that only 63% of our students pass the Standards of Learning exam at the end of the year. That means that 37% of our students did not meet the Virginia writing standards. Of that group, only a little more than 18% belong to our ELL group. Those that did not meet the standard failed because of the grammar section on the SOL exam. The following are the areas of grammar that are tested on the SOL writing test. These slides represent what is required of our students in order to be successful on the writing test. This is not a language arts problem or an 8th grade problem, even though the test is given at the end of 8th grade. It is our entire school's problem. Therefore, we've developed a plan. We will all practice a grammar concept each day. Language arts will explicitly teach a grammar concept each day from the SOL list that you saw on the slides. The next day, every teacher in the building will practice that concept in some way within the context of their content area. Each team will determine the best method for delivering their content, but we hope it will integrate content area and academic vocabulary. Since we are all going to begin helping our students with grammar, it will be important to understand how to be effective grammar instructors, and to do that, we must understand it ourselves. This brings me to the central theme of this presentation and the potential solution to our dilemma. Linguistics, what is it? It is the scientific study of language, including structure, meaning, and context. Every language has a structure that includes phonology, which is the sounds of words, morphology, which is the formation of words, and syntax, which is the formation of sentences. There are rules that exist that dictate what is allowed within a language. These rules are called grammar. Semantics is the study of the meaning of language, while pragmatics is the study of the meaning within the context of the language. So, sounds, or phonology, combine to form words, morphology, which combine to form sentences, syntax, which combine to form meaning, semantics, which change in context, pragmatics. So, how does linguistics relate to our school? Consider this. Last year, in a single grade level, the following languages were represented: Japanese, Chinese, both Mandarin and Cantonese, Vietnamese, Twi from Ghana, Somali Arabic, and several Kenyan dialects, along with Urdu and Spanish, with children from South America, Central America, and Mexico. In order to serve our students, we need to know how and why languages work the way they do, because that will provide insights into how and why we should use best practices. Best practices come from current linguistics research. Therefore, we need to understand linguistics. For this purpose, I've constructed a web portal that provides information and teaching strategies relating to the main linguistic subtopics. You'll be provided the web address along with a copy of this video through the school's email in the next. Feel free to utilize any of the links and information on this portal. I'm going to highlight a few links I find particularly helpful. Phonology has several helpful links, but I want to draw your attention to a very informative supportive document from Reading First of Virginia. This link provides information and instructional activities to develop phonological awareness and provides images and explicit instructional information. The morphology link leads to a prefix and suffix lesson that explains how to modify it to traverse various levels of language learners. There is another lesson that includes several variations for teaching morpheme structures. It also utilizes several kinesthetic strategies. The syntax subtopic links to several excellent sources as well. The lesson I consider exceptional is one that focuses upon the construction and arrangement of clauses, phrases, and sentences. Grammar is one of the most important things we can teach our students, as we have all been told. However, language teachers and language learners are often frustrated by the disconnect between knowing the rules of grammar and being able to apply those rules automatically in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This link provides strategies that will help students make the connection between declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. A second link to the grammar subtopic explains how teachers can help students learn about grammar and sentence structure and to be able to reflect on how the English language actually works. They also demonstrate a method that helps students critically evaluate their own texts grammatically. 12 general semantics lessons for middle school students is linked to the semantics subtopic. These lessons are especially helpful and provide 12 general semantics lessons for middle school students. They were developed as a part of a research study that used the ideas and techniques of general semantics to reduce feelings of alienation among 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. The Reading Rocket site is also linked under semantics, and it provides a semantic feature analysis strategy using a grid to let students explore how sets of things are related to one another. By completing and analyzing the grid, students are able to see connections, make predictions, and master important concepts. This strategy enhances comprehension and vocabulary skills. The pragmatics subtopic has several helpful links, including this one that provides other links demonstrating a variety of strategies for students that will help them develop skills in this area. The next link that I would like to point out fully explains pragmatics as a conditional way of understanding sentences. It provides strategies to help students think about meaning by accounting for the context. The final 3 sites I wish to highlight are in the area of discourse. The first includes strategies for helping ESL writers. It provides strategies for students to identify types of errors in their writing, rather than the teacher marking and/or correcting every error they make. Rather, it helps the students take responsibility for finding and correcting errors for themselves, which of course enhances their learning. The next is a set of scaffolded discourse strategies for ELL learners. It provides more than 10 complete lessons in this area. The lessons are tremendously beneficial and can be modified for levels of learners. Finally, the last site provides strategies for developing BICS, Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills. These are the skills involved in everyday communication, including listening, speaking, carrying on basic conversations, and understanding speakers. And in the end, trying to get one's basic needs met. I've decided to make grammar the focus of this presentation because of the needs of our diverse group of ELL learners in our middle school. Grammar instruction requires accommodating students from several different countries with several different languages and diverse backgrounds. Our goal is to develop and deliver grammar lessons that are effective and relevant for a broad range of diverse students. This includes our regular students that are in the mainstream classroom. Our school, our district, and our state supports the view that grammar is a skill to be taught for all of our students, not just the ELLs, but the regular population as well. Grammar instruction, and in fact grammar, is essential to listening, speaking, reading, and writing in an effective manner. Therefore, it's essential to our students to learn an effective use of grammar. Efficient communication is built upon the understanding and the effective use of grammar. Our goal is that students will learn to self-correct because this leads to self-sufficiency. We must create a curriculum that allows them to begin to correct their own mistakes because they begin to see those mistakes. There are two main approaches to the teaching of grammar. One is the deductive approach, which focuses on analyzing language. The other is the inductive approach, which the focus becomes using the language itself and working on grammar as language is used. Many specialists suggest an eclectic approach combining both of these methods. Both grammar-based and communicative approaches are effective in teaching grammar, especially to older students. An eclectic approach includes the best parts of several teaching methods. Students learn and practice grammar in a natural sequence through listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The teacher uses charts, actions, pictures, or objects to present the target grammar. The focus is form combined with communication. Context for instruction come from everyday life. The classroom activities are always interactive. Instruction includes attention to form, meaning, and use, and the lessons include pronunciation practice so that people can begin to speak English. Our priority is to teach what our students need to learn. Therefore, we need to choose our grammar to help our students in their everyday lives. Also, we need to determine the English that is most urgent for them to learn. We use a needs assessment, a survey, or a checklist in order to identify these priorities. Also, we avoid spending time on grammar that's not very commonly used. The following is an example of explicit grammar instruction and the steps to teaching it. The first thing you would want to do is announce your focus. For example, maybe you're going to teach comparatives. Next, you would write an example of the structure on the board, or you would provide the students with a grammar chart. For example, a chart that contains big, bigger, expensive, more expensive, good, better. Next, you would model the structure. You would explain that a comparative is used to talk about the difference between two things. Next, you might provide sentences with examples on the board of comparatives and follow with a question-answer response with the students. The next example includes steps to teaching grammar using the implicit instruction example. To do this, you announce your focus in a meaningful context without giving any explanations about the grammar. You can do this by making your classroom the context itself. Let's do this using a continuous tense example. I am speaking. I am not sleeping. May is listening now. She is not talking. May and Ricky are listening. They are not talking. You can use pictures, students' lives, or objects to provide a context. Always check the students for understanding at the end and provide sentences with fill-in-the-blank activities so they can practice. Whether you're using implicit or explicit methods depends upon the learner's variables. That is, their language level and their educational background. With the eclectic approach, grammar is introduced implicitly in a meaningful context and provides explicit explanations of form, meaning, and use, and provides the rule if possible. The graphic demonstrates steps and activities in grammar presentation. The T represents teacher and the S represents students. It provides the steps, the sample activities, and examples. Guided practice activities should always follow the introduction to a new target grammar. It's essential that students practice applying new grammar in communication situations as well. The teacher should model all the dialogue. The students should listen and repeat. The teacher should take a role and the student take another role. The teacher could divide the class and each group could take one of the roles. The students could practice in pairs. The teacher should check for understanding and monitoring and should monitor throughout this entire process using the question-answer response. And the teacher should always provide feedback on grammar and pronunciation errors. We should use grammar practice involving listening, speaking, reading, and writing activities. We should also use drills, both mechanical and meaningful. In order to understand this, I should distinguish between the two. A mechanical drill requires a minimum of comprehension of content, while a meaningful drill requires that the student understand the language in order to respond correctly. Grammar practice. Teachers should use dialogue substitutions to help students participate in short conversations. That means they should have 2 to 4 exchanges between themselves, and each student should do repeating. Each time they should substitute different vocabulary, but repeat the target grammar. The chart provides an example of this kind of drill. Grids can be used to provide information for students in forming questions and answers. Use a grid such as the one shown above. Question-answer response practice can go on using conversation cards and word strips. Word strips are sentences cut up into words. Students arrange the words to form questions or statements. Conversation cards are index cards or strips of paper that provide cues for guided conversations between two students. All of these can be found online. Another practice activity is information transfer. This requires students to take information presented in one form and put it into another form. Another activity is called information gap activities. You take 2 sheets that contain the same information, but each is also missing some of the information, but it's found on a second sheet. Partners must ask one another questions in order to gather the missing information and then fill it in on the chart. Practicing communication is important because it reflects real language used outside the classroom. This is a student-centered activity that requires the teacher to behave as a facilitator and nothing else. That means the teacher will model the activity. Either the teacher demonstrates the activity or has 2 students demonstrate. Then the teacher will set up groups. The students will either work in partners or in small groups. The teacher also creates a group reporting process because this must be done at the end of the activity. The teacher monitors while students work, and then the teacher provides feedback at the end. Activities that are helpful in reinforcing grammar include the following. The students can use interview grids. This is where they will work in small groups, or they'll walk around the room and mingle with one another, asking and answering questions that the teacher provides on handouts. Following the completion of their handouts, the students might write paragraphs about the other student, the one that they interviewed, using the information that they gathered, and then report their information aloud. Students can also use conversation cards to ask and answer one another's questions. There are a number of activities that reinforce grammar use. For example, one activity is opinion sharing. Students can ask and answer questions about the school, cafeteria meals, content area, likes and dislikes, and then the small group can share its answers. This provides students with conversation, communication skills, and also they're able to really express their opinions in an appropriate form. Another activity is the jigsaw activity. In this activity, different students have different pieces of information which they must share in order to make the whole come together. And then, in explaining it to each other, they will be able to gather the whole conversation. Problem solving is another activity where students are presented with a problem or a set of problems. Either orally or in writing, they must solve the problem together. Role play is another wonderful situation where students will be provided an imaginary situation and they will act the situation out in pairs or in groups. In this, they can practice past tense, present tense, or the teacher's grammar of choice. More grammar activities and information are available at the Linguistic Companion, http://edmorton.weebly.com. There are also some wonderful activities at the Grammar Activities site. It is a4esl.org. The links are on this presentation. The final thing I would like to present is the interactive student notebook, including grammar foldables. One of the most important things about instruction of any kind is that it must be engaging. The interactive student notebook is a wonderfully engaging year-round project. Grammar, along with many other linguistic activities, work very well as components of the interactive student notebook. There are many grammar activities that can be done using foldables. The purpose of this section of the presentation is to provide only a few examples of foldables along with some activity suggestions. Students can create pockets in their notebooks to hold grammar and vocabulary cards. They can create cards to practice grammar as a hands-on experience. Students can create their own story using specific adjectives and adverbs and publish it by making a traditional mini book. They can then put this book into their interactive notebook and reflect on it at the end of the year. Students can create their own flip book also using a focus as grammar. It can be on a single grammar point, or students can use the dual flip book to compare two types of grammar. Students can keep adding notes to their flip book as they learn more and more, and then they can store their flip book in their notebook to refer to it for studying. Using the pyramid foldable, students should write about 3 specific events in their past with pictures for each side. Students would then write about 3 events that they believe will occur in their future with pictures as well. This is grammar work, but it's grammar work without them really knowing it. There are many types of folds you can do with paper in order to use for many kinds of activities, especially for grammar. The diorama can be used for conversational role play in the classroom. Role play is an excellent way for students to practice conversation, but it's also an excellent way for the teacher to gather data on each student and their weaknesses and strengths and the errors that they are creating, so that the teacher can come back with them on an individual basis and help them correct those errors, creating as little embarrassment and anxiety as possible. Just remember, in this school, when we work together, we can accomplish anything. Thank you so much for your attention. This is an explanation of my presentation. In a perfect world, where I had complete control, I would create a plan, train the teachers, and everyone would cooperate. The plan would be executed and our students would be successful. There's a problem at my school. My students are rapidly losing ground on the writing portion of the state skills-based exam, and it is clear that we need to intervene in a dramatic and effective manner with all of our students. This presentation is an imaginary exercise to get the teachers enthusiastic about teaching grammar in every content area. I have neither the power or the position to actually initiate or accomplish this task. Very few teachers have had formal grammar instruction in elementary, secondary, or college level education. This is a serious problem. It's serious because our teachers need convincing that grammar instruction is essential to student literacy. To accomplish this, we must overcome the negative reputation grammar teaching has developed. Our teachers must be convinced of the benefits of grammar instruction. Historically, grammar instruction fell out of favor in the 1960s, but it came back in the 90s. Since that time, the value of grammar instruction is gaining favor among specialists. Despite this, grammar instruction is not uniformly in place within school curriculums generally. It is definitely not in place in no-name middle school. Research evidence and common sense areas of need, particularly with ELLs, suggest that we should begin explicit and implicit grammar instruction in schools throughout every content area, integrating it in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. What should be taught? Morphology and syntax. How should we teach it? There are 3 general principles of teaching grammar. It should be taught systematically in a spiral curriculum, and it should be integrated into content areas, along with other parts of teaching. Also, we should use standard technical terminology so it is consistent throughout the school. Teaching teachers to teach grammar is our first priority. After we convince our teachers that it is essential to all of our students, my presentation pretends to attempt to accomplish this task.